Today, I'm gonna talk to you about qualifying and some other stuff. I think this will conclude the practice segments nicely, as I want to move to other subjects. My name is Dorian, I'm a 5K road driver, and I'll be happy to hear your thoughts for future episodes in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and if you want to see more, then subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. First thing you want to do is understand that qualifying is its own race and should be treated as such. To get the best results, you need repetition. In those final 10 to 15 minutes before a race starts, you'll be best served to practice the first 3 laps a few times over. On your out lap, push the car right from cold tires to around 80%, so to build groove, warm up the car, and test the track conditions before you go on that flyer. In some tire models, the first lap after the out lap is your fastest. So a part of practicing the first 3 laps is about studying the tire degradation and which lap is best to set your banker on. I really don't agree with the statement that the first flying lap should be your safe lap. If my tires are good and ready, I am pushing the car. And on the second lap, I will take it a bit easier just in case I messed up the first one. And for those of you who choose not to qualify, I can say that unless you're truly worried about your safety rating or iRating from dropping too low, I urge you to reconsider. It takes a lot of time to figure out who to fight, who to watch out from, and who to let go. And I sure as fuck can't teach you that in one video. But once you do figure it out, even if you feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg, it will boost your stats and frankly let you enjoy racing a whole lot more in the long run. Building a setup from scratch is something that I don't really know how to do. It seems like the more I learn about it, the less I understand. And I'm also realizing how a small minority of people actually have the know-how to get the most out of the car. That taught me one thing: to adapt an already working setup for my needs. And now I'm gonna show you how I take a regular race setup and convert it to a qualifying setup. What I want to do is very simple. I want to reduce that fuel and make some adjustments to compensate for that weight reduction. So let's quickly go over it and find a setup. Doesn't matter which one, whatever one you like for this track. And I'm just gonna choose medium downforce sprint. We'll go to the chassis tab and scroll down a bit until we can see the front and back ride height and the fuel level. You want to pay good attention to the ride height because that's going to change as we reduce the fuel. And we want to balance that back by using the spring perch offset. So we're taking the fuel down, let's say around 12 liters. Again, it depends on how much fuel the car is consuming per lap on each track, but for this one, 12 liters should cut it nicely. You can see that the rear ride height has moved up to 85.5 and the front ride height has moved up to 50.8. The car is taller now because it has less weight. And we want to balance that to mitigate whatever side effects this might have for the handling. So we're going to take the spring perch offset down by a few clicks and see what happens. So if we click here once, 84.9, another time 84.6 or 84.4 in fact. And if we try again, we're at 83.8. So we can't hit the exact spot it used to be in, but we can get pretty close. So 83.8 or 84.4. This is our range. This is what we can play with, and either of those settings could work. Sometimes one would be better than the other, so you can, experiment with that a little bit. Let's try to balance out the fronts. That should work nicely. 50.1 or 50.8 for the front tires. That's going to be the right height for the front and the rear as I'm doing this quali setup. Another thing you want to take into consideration is the car is now much lighter, therefore you could be using more aero without losing so much straight line speed. So testing it out with an extra click of wing can really sort you out sometimes, especially if the car is a bit loose on cold tires. Here's a piece of advice I end up giving to a lot of drivers. For anyone who is trying to up their practice game, I tell them that 30 minutes of racing equals 2 hours of practice. What that means is that there's so much more to racing than having pace. And get this, it's easier to find pace by racing other people. So I suppose the one thing that might help you here is treating racing like practice. I'm not saying you shouldn't get reasonably comfy before you jump in, But if you look at the first 1 or 2 races as practice, 2 things will happen. 1, you will relieve yourself of a lot of stress. The first races of the week are stressful enough, and if you add the pressure to perform, you will most likely make some crucial mistakes. This of course amplifies if you can only spare short periods of time on the sim. Even if, and this is in a bit of a contradiction to what I've been saying earlier, even if you do your first race or 2 without qualifying and just take it easy and observe other drivers, you'd still learn more and faster than practicing on your own. Number 2 is you'll have more fun, which is what it's all about. Race, fail, race again. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.